talking about Marc Ambrosia is my guest tonight, and we already heard his new single, Gay and Proud, a few minutes ago. And actually, before I get into that, I want to get into first, Steve also had a question for you. And it's not as random. Sometimes he likes to ask random questions about, pets and ice cream and stuff like that. This one has to do with you as a musician. He said, where and when was the first time you played in front of an audience?
All right. First time I ever played in front of an audience. Well, I guess the earliest gigs would be, I used to sing at the Baptist church when I was a little kid.
Okay.
That's where I got my start, was just singing gospel. And then I would sing in my church, and then other churches started wanting me to come and do things. And then that led to singing at the national anthem at Phillies games and, different
how old
events.
were you when you did that?
So I guess I started that when I was 11.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So then, first time in front of, an actual paying audience was probably about 11 years ago. That's when me and Shane Rojas were just kind of getting started and writing songs. And we just knew we wanted to get out there and play. And we didn't even have enough songs at the time. Yeah. So we booked a bunch of gigs and we better go write a whole bunch of songs. So the first shows weren't great because a lot of the songs were, filler.
Well, sure.
But once we got through it took about a year until we got a set list that was just solid originals and they were all really good. But it was, it was like a songwriting boot camp. It was a lot of fun. I wouldn't have traded it for anything.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, it seems that's a natural progression, it sounds like there.
Yeah.
So, we played your song "Gay and Proud" about a half hour ago, I guess it was, and I had asked you first. I asked you about what responses came in from people that you know. Now I'm curious, what kind of responses have you gotten from people? Just whether they're random people who stumbled upon your song, or industry people, or anything like that, outside of your circle of friends and family and whatnot.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think a lot of what the press has been saying has been this is Marc Ambrosia at his most authentic yet, which I can't argue with that. I think it's this is the part of Marc Ambrosia that's been hiding underneath the surface and is finally out for the world to see. It's interesting to hear a lot of these, press articles kind of classify the song. I hate, having to classify music because the music I do is so, it's just so varied in terms of genre.
Right.
And I when I make an album, I don't like to make it all one genre. I do like to kind of hop around and meld it all together.
Yeah.
And, but so many of them are kind of calling Gay and Proud a country rock, country pop tune. And
interesting.
It's not what I would call it. To me, it's just a rock song, but they seem to like it, so that's fine. And, but I guess it does kind of make a little bit of sense because a lot of times when we were working on the song in the studio, in terms of the production and the sound we were going for, Stephen Stills, Tom Petty, those names kind of kept getting thrown around, and they're definitely, rock and rollers who have had their fair share of kind of country flavored things. I guess it kind of does make sense.
So it was, the influence was in there, even though you weren't aware of it, I guess.
Yeah, it just kind of seeped in, and then I was kind of more surprised than anyone, just for oh yeah, that's in there.
So and who played on the song with you?
So let's see. So we had Rick Eddy. It played the drums on this track. Yeah, he's from Harlow Jones.
He's
Metropolis.
Got
Blue Wave Theory. I think
he's in a lot of bands.
He's in a lot of bands, and he's someone that I'd only known peripherally up until this year. Mm-hmm. My first couple albums I did was at Blackwood Recording with Jamie Meyerson. And Jamie would always, whenever I would go into a studio, he'd be like, "Oh man, that guy Rick was here, and he just played another great session. You got to hear this." And I always thought Rick was a great drummer.
Yeah.
And when I was getting ready to start working on new songs earlier this year, I'd reached out to some drummers that I'd worked with before, and just one thing led to another, and the scheduling wasn't really going to line up. So I just thought, well, this is an opportunity to work with someone new, and why don't I give that guy Rick a call?
Yeah.
And that was the best thing I ever could have done, because in the course of 3 months, I think we knocked out 7 tracks with Rick. And so a bunch of those are going to be on the Gay and Proud album, which should hopefully be ready by the top of the new year. And then some of those other ones will probably go on future projects. Then we have Thanny Nixon, who played bass on this. And he's someone who, when I was out doing shows for my first album, he was in my band.
Okay.
And so I reached out to him, and he did a great job. And then Anthony Cubbage did the guitars. And it was my first time working with Anthony, and certainly not my last, because he just knocked it out of the park, and I just fell in love with him, and I think he's a great musician.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, great. And so the album is also called Gay and Proud.
The album is also called Gay and Proud. We're working on it currently, and you always think these things are going to be done sooner than they actually are. For a while I was saying, oh yeah, it'll be out by August, and it will so not be out by August. But probably I would say, between like January, February of next year, and we'll probably have another single or two out this year. So,
okay.
So it's a work in progress, and it sounds really great so far. It's definitely the most happy, joyous, upbeat thing I've ever done, and I think, that just goes in step with the celebration that I feel that the song Gay and Proud is, the album also is.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun one.
All right, we're going to step back a little bit here. We're going to go back to way back to the old school Edge album from, what, 7 months ago?
9 months ago, yeah, exactly. Something like that.
And anything you want to say about this song?
So, this was a song, as I had mentioned earlier, remote recording and just working with other musicians remotely has become a kind of a new way that things get done in the music industry thanks to COVID. It was one of maybe the only gifts that the pandemic gave us, right, was the the know-how and the technology to work remotely with people. I had co-written this song with a friend of mine from London named Amir Haider.
Okay.
We had attended a songwriters retreat back in California maybe 4 or 5 years ago, and that's where we met. And then we had just kept in touch after that. And he had this guitar riff, but he didn't have any lyrics for it. And I just told him, we were on Skype, I said, Amir, give me 24 hours. I'm going to write lyrics to this, and we'll come back and we'll have a song. And sure enough, we did, and it just turned into this great little kind of kiss off to a partner who doesn't really serve you well anymore, and you would just want for nothing else than for them to give you the cold shoulder.
All right.